We live in a great big world. I have found in that big world there are things that occasionally come along that are not easily explained. Mysteries. I have always been attracted to these mysteries since I can remember. And I only know one thing. The older I get, the more I learn. That's a given. But the weirder and stranger this world gets. There is still very much we do not know about our world, but these are some of my favorites. Just a few at this time. And I'm also up for new content, so let me know what you think. Now these are some of the strangest things that I've come across, or known about for some time. And of course, if you're anything like me, the stranger it is, the more intrigued I am. The more I want to find out what, if anything, is there. And a few of them you might want to chuckle or even scoff out of hand at. But have you ever thought something was completely ridiculous only to find out it was true? The question I asked in the history video is still valid. To me, everything deserves a serious look. Check some of these things out and let me know what you think, because your comments positively give me a different direction, or can make me see it in an entirely different way, which I'm not stating I believe it. I'm just presenting it to say, what do you think of this? It's happened before. Okay, let's get it going.
Let's get down. Get back up again.
Number 1. Giants of Renown. There are many tales of a lost civilization of giants, as old as humanity itself. There are the titans of ancient Greek myths who battled the gods of Olympus. Actually, history and the whole planet are littered with their bones and graves. For some reason, the Smithsonian Institute just won't go there. It's very difficult to get any truth. For whatever reason, mainstream does not want us to know. In the 1960s, giants were common knowledge and thought to have existed. They even had a children's show called The Friendly Giant. But then, flying carpets and giants just disappeared off the face of the earth. But the most well-known giants are the ones that are in the Bible. The Bible describes giants as the product of supernatural beings called Nephilim, mating with earth women. The Quran speaks of giants. Of Ad and Kamud speak of huge and powerful giants who apparently could uproot trees with their bare hands. In my video from Velikovsky's Nephilim, he says this: as the dethronement and emasculation of Uranus by Kronos. If the ancient legends of a battle between the gods and titans, so persistent in the Greek world, but also in the mythologies of other civilizations, have any historical value, we may try to find what may have been the substratum of this fantasy. It seems that following great convulsions of nature, observable in the celestial sphere, giant bodies were hurled on the earth. They arrived, burned, and were crushed by impact. But at least one group of escapees succeeded in safely reaching the earth. They descended on Mount Hermon, or Anti-Lebanon. Of the extra-biblical traditions dealing with the subject, some reach hoary antiquity. And in a second essay by Velikovsky on the subject of giants, she says this: it's certain. The Hebrew scriptures as preserved in the Old Testament and in the Talmud and Midrashim narrate that among the races of the world in the previous age were races of giants, men of great size, tremendous strength and ferocity, who were destroying other races, but also were turning upon each other and destroying themselves. The book of Genesis 6:4 narrates that in the antediluvial time there were giants and the earth in those days. There are also giants in Hindu writings. Now, the tallest human on record was Robert Pershing Wadlow, who was 8 feet 11 inches tall, who certainly had to have some kind of genes from giants. He had giant's disease, where the body's cells never stopped growing, but that had to come from somewhere. There is a video from George Halicki, who claims this is authentic and real footage of a true certain giant individual from Japan walking in some military parade. What's shocking about it is his actual size. He has a stature of at least 3 to 4 meters high, which is a minimum of 13 feet. Thus, he is genuinely taller and more massive than each and every other original NBA player. And this is a testimony and evidence, it's sort of proof here that giants did exist. Whether it proves they were the offspring of the Nephilim remains to be seen. Yes, we're very familiar with this picture from Thunderbolts. Has anyone ever realized that the guy on the left is a giant? I've got the slow with. But just like Lincoln's address to Congress, I think that there was a time when giants did exist on Earth in several different sizes at several different times. There were giant insects, there were giant plants, giant flowers, giant dinosaurs, and giant men, who were thought to have originally reached the height of 120 feet. And as gravity changed, so did their height. And Sumerian tales are rich with giants. According to these tales, Gilgamesh was a giant. And of course, don't forget Egypt. The hieroglyphics are full of giants. Hugh Newman, the co-author of Giants on Record, mentioned in his book about the monumental structures of Egypt and their relationship with giants. He wrote, "The Akbar el-Zaman, also known as the Book of Wonders, circa 900 to 1100 AD, is an Arabian compilation of medieval lore about Egypt and the world before the Great Flood. What it says is Egypt had giants galore up the wazoo. It claims that the people of Ad were giants, so Shaddad was most likely one, and it is said that he built the monuments of Dashur with the stones that had been carved in the time of his father. Before this, the giant Harjit had begun its construction. At a later date, Kaftarim, another giant, placed secrets in the pyramids of Dashur and other pyramids to imitate what had been done of old. He founded the city of Dendera. Dashur consists of the Red Pyramid and Bent Pyramid. Was constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Sneferu, 2613 to 2589 BC. Dendera consists of highly decorated pillars dedicated to the goddess Hathor. The text goes on to say that Nakros, the first king of Egypt, after the flood, with his companions built monuments, erected high towers, and executed the wonderful works, while the city of Memphis was the work of a later set of giants, who worked for King Misraim. Another giant later, it describes the work of more of these colossi. Adim was a giant with insurmountable strength and the greatest of men. He ordered the quarrying of rocks and their transportation to build pyramids, as had been done in former times. There you have it. The reason pyramids were built, because they were built in former time. That's it. The only reason. No big deal. We do it because we've always done it, and for no other reason. They had no use or purpose. Just busy beavers building dams, with only one little teeny-weeny problem. Along the way, we forgot how to make them last. In fact, many myths and ancient texts are bound to the stories of giants. For example, of course, there are the Nephilims in Genesis 6:4 Bible are portrayed as giants. Besides, according to the Gilgamesh epic, Gilgamesh surpassed other kings in bodily stature. He was estimated to have been between 4.8 to 5.4 meters tall, 16 and 18 feet. The first pharaoh of Egypt, circa 3150 BC, was called Menes, or Narmer, but is more famously remembered as the Scorpion King. There is no record of his stature, but he is depicted as being very tall on the famous Narmer palette, circa 3100 BC, and during his reign, oversized artifacts were created and now preserved in a museum in Oxford, England. The third dynasty saw the Great Pyramid of Saqqara built, with numerous other temples in the complex. Djoser, who buried the gigantic king Khashekami, and may have been his son, was the ruler of Saqqara during its construction. Within the complex, painting of the giant, who clearly appears to have an elongated skull, was photographed by Egyptologist Zawi Hawass, examining it. Yay, Zawi! Another proof of giants in ancient Egypt are the gigantic coffin, the Serapeum, which we've discussed before, near Saqqara. It is composed of 25 massive granite and diorite coffins, weighing up to 70 tons each, and mummified Apis bulls were sealed in them, allegedly, as part of an ancient cult. But no bull bones or mummies have ever been found. Interesting. As we have discussed in a previous show not long ago, and I told you what Brian Forrester says is that the locals told him that humanoids were found in them, giant humanoids, and something or someone moved the tops. They're open. Another huge sarcophagus is located under the Giza Plateau in what is called the Osiris Shaft. It is partly submerged underwater. It's rarely visited or photographed. Yes, indeed. This place is just as crazy as the Serapeum. It's very intricately designed with it goes down 3 levels. These are the same people that built the pyramids, that built the South American pyramids, the Teotihuacan, all those cities. These are all the same people. They use their knowledge wisely. Just like our soil. There are no nutrients in it anymore. No minerals. You have to go to the sea. And it is deep beneath the stone causeway of the so-called Khafra's Pyramid. The alabaster coffin of Seti I is 9 feet 4 inches, 2.84 meters long, and is currently housed in the Soane Museum in London. He was also the larger-than-life figure depicted on the Abydos King list, and with the massiveness of his coffin. And the statues. Many giants in Egypt and South America, with the Toltecs, who even seem to have tall in their name. The fascinating one is that there is a good possibility there were Cyclops on the Earth at one time. In 1940, a newspaper in Arizona reported the finding of a giant skull in a detailed newspaper report. Then there are the Chinese giants. In 2017, archaeologists unearthed the graves of some giants in Shandong, China. And archaeologists unearthed the bones of giants in Hillsboro, Ohio, right by Serpent Mound, which I still think is the depiction of a comet. Then there is the Giant of Ohio, where workers unearthed the skeleton of a giant. One of the most famous skulls unearthed was the giant skull of a Cyclops. I've never really believed it to be a fact, but it does seem that Cyclops actually may have once existed. One fine foggy winter day, workmen unearthed this huge cycloptic skull. And one of the greatest discoveries was also the unique giant in Thailand, in Krabi, Thailand to be exact. It was a male skeleton that measured 6 meters. That's about 24 feet. But I'm very curious to know what you think. I would like to read your comments. What is your stance on the giants of Earth's past? Do you think they're still with us? Or do you think they're long extinct? Let me know below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And I will see you later. On 23 November 1944, at the height of World War II, a base in Kortenberg, Belgium became the site of one of World War II's biggest mysteries. It seems personnel at the base were shocked to see a B-17 bomber flying low and hurtling towards them. Since no emergency message had been sent, no one expected to see the plane so recklessly flying above. Personnel at the base could only wait and watch as the lumbering bomber came hurtling towards them. They were very relieved when the bomber just missed the base's building structure. As it passed by, they noticed the landing gear was down. It hit the ground pretty hard and bounced while it was slowing down. It was bouncing its way down the runway before eventually coming to a stop. Everyone was relieved when no one else was injured, as they waited with bated breath for perhaps the crew to come out and explain their situation. After 20 minutes passed and no one appeared, those who had observed the crash were hesitant to approach the plane. They were worried about their enemies resorting to sneaky tactics, perhaps booby-trapping the plane. So at first they believed it to be a trap. Eventually, a British major named John Crisp decided to investigate. After cautiously approaching the plane, Mr. Crisp opened the hatch, and once inside, he made a pretty startling discovery. The entire interior of the plane was empty. After Crisp found some partially eaten food, he ascertained that it had to have been at one time occupied. However, there was no one in the plane, alive or dead, and the plane's parachutes had not been yet used. How could the plane have flown and landed on a base without a crew? The military began to investigate and eventually discovered that the crew was alive and well in Belgium. They reported that the plane had been damaged and, for whatever reason, put the plane on autopilot and bailed out. I guess, damn the torpedoes wherever it lands. But just how could the plane have traveled so far without a crew? How could the crew have escaped without parachutes? And most perplexing at all, how is it that the plane could have landed itself at a military base? All these years later, these questions have never been answered. I found this to be most intriguing, so if you know or if you have an opinion, please put it in the comments. What do you think? Now this one will go straight to Freaky Land. Well, maybe chalk another one up for the aquatic ape hypothesis. Maybe. As three friends somewhere were fishing in their boat, one of the friends claimed that he felt something grab him. And they started looking around to see what it could be. And they did. One drops a water bottle into the water. And this is what happens. Tell me what you think.
Biarin aja botolnya, biarin aja dia kabur. Botol itu. Dia mau cuma.
Do you think that is a humanoid mermaid type hand, or is it a prank? It's a pretty good one if it is, because it looks pretty real. And going back to our mermaid show, there have been myths and tales of mermaids and mermen, teachers of men, all throughout history. Allegedly, a German photographer photographed a movie of a real woolly mammoth in Siberia. So you think that they were extinct? This video is considered to be particularly unusual. The mysterious footage appears to be that of a long extinct woolly mammoth, the size and shape of a large tusked elephant. The creature seems too long-haired to be anything else. The timing is eerie, because by that time the animal had been known to be long extinct. So what do you think? It would have been hard to fake an 8mm film in 1948, and it has the look that it's about right for that time. Of course, that can be fake. But what do you think? And if you know anything about this, do let me know in the comments. Thank you. Are we living in an alien's computer game? Elon Musk thinks it's probable. Elon Musk is messing with our heads again. This time he's saying it more than likely that life on Earth is just the creative imaging of a super advanced civilization that is playing us for their super advanced entertainment pleasure. His argument, which was covered in lots of places, runs so: Step 1. Look at the rate in which humans have made progress in computers simulating technology. Step 2. If we extrapolate and keep inventing and improving at that rate, it is entirely likely that at some point we are going to be able to simulate something that is indistinguishable from reality. Step 3. If humans are going to get there, then it's more than likely that someone has already done it. Step 4. Therefore, we mere mortals are probably part of someone else's simulation as we live our lives right now, which always makes me wonder, where is the source for electricity? Musk is actually riffing on a 2003 paper by Oxford professor of philosophy Nick Bostrom. Are we living in a computer simulation? Known as the simulation argument. Bostrom theorized that one of three propositions is true. 1. The human race is likely to become extinct before reaching a post-human stage. Hence, Musk's imperative to get to Mars. 2. Any post-human civilization is unlikely to run a significant number of simulations of its evolutionary history. 3. We are most certainly living in a computer simulation. His argument is that the best we can hope for is that option 3 is true. But is it really likely that we are in simulation? What assumptions go into making such an argument? And can we tear apart those assumptions? We also think the argument is pointless, Because even if the above were true, what could we do about it? And would it matter if what looks like reality isn't reality, but we have no access to what might be behind this reality? How could it change our lives given that we can never find out? I just wanted to add something. I know a person who had a near-death experience, and I know there's a lot of people that have. And from what he told me, just the story of the two guys on opposing teams working together for 20 minutes waiting for the ambulance to get there to bring him back to save his life is a miraculous story in itself. But when I had talked to him about 2 months later, it really blew my wig back. And he saw his dad. He had a heart attack. He flatlined for 20 minutes while they worked on him. He was a pitcher in my league. After he survived, they saved his life. Two doctors happened to be there, and they were giving him CPR. And he told me this time that he was carried to heaven by angels, saw his dad, and his dad said, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "I don't know." And he said, "No, you need to go back." And he pushed him, and he fell, and then all of a sudden he heard, "Shh, breathe." Now that's pretty freaky. And that makes me think that we're not in a simulation, if that's the case. Finally, the Musk musings reveal a shocking lack of imagination about what aliens are capable of. How likely is it that super-intelligent extraterrestrial beings are living even remotely the same sort of lives as us? Are they also playing around on computer games when they should be doing their homework? Really, is parental supervision equally bad in Cyborg? And why would we think we are that interesting for this species to want to play with us in their simulation? What do you think? I'd really be interested to know.
No, there's a 1 in billions chance that this is base reality.
Oh.
The master of the universe.
Well, that's going to do it for this show, folks. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, donate if you can to help the cause. Become a super supporter with Patreon or PayPal. But it's important for me to let people know who's stepping up and how grateful I am. That'll do it for me tonight. Take care. I'll see you on down the road. I hope everything is okay out there with the signal.